In the year 1867, in a world lit by oil lamps and ruled by iron logic, a boy appeared who did not fit the rules of nature. Doctors examined him, teachers questioned him, priests prayed over him, and scientists, men who believed they could explain everything, were left silent. This is the true style historical mystery of Timothy Caldwell. The boy science couldn't explain, beat, and what happened to him was buried for more than a century. Timothy Caldwell was born on November 3, 1867, in a small riverside town near Hannibal, Missouri. The American Civil War had ended just 2 years earlier. The nation was healing, but barely. Poverty, grief, and superstition filled the air just as thick as hope. Timothy's parents were ordinary people. His father, Elias Caldwell, was a former Union Supply clerk, quiet, practical, deeply religious. His mother, Margaret Caldwell, was known in town for her kindness and her silence. The birth itself was unusual. The midwife, Clara Hensley, later wrote in her journal, "The child did not cry at once. He opened his eyes and looked at us. Not like a newborn, like someone older, someone watching." Timothy finally cried, but only once. Then he went silent. Healthy, breathing, alert, just silent. From the beginning, Timothy behaved differently. He rarely cried. He slept less than other infants. But the most unsettling thing was how he watched. Margaret noticed it first. Timothy's eyes followed people, not randomly, but intentionally. When someone entered the room, his gaze locked onto their face. When they spoke, his eyes moved with their mouth. When they stopped speaking, he continued staring, as if waiting for something else. By 6 months old, Timothy began doing something no baby should have been capable of. He mimicked, not sounds, expressions. If Elias frowned, Timothy frowned. If Margaret smiled, Timothy smiled. Perfectly, too perfectly. In the spring of 1869, when Timothy was just over 1 year old, something happened that changed everything. Margaret was speaking with a neighbor about the price of flour. Elias was seated nearby, reading from a newspaper. Suddenly, Timothy spoke, not babbling, not a baby word. He said, "That price is unreasonable." The room went silent. Elias dropped the newspaper. The neighbor crossed herself. Margaret began to cry. Timothy had never been taught those words. He had never been read to. He had never been corrected or coached. Yet he spoke, clearly, calmly, and with the tone of an adult. Word spread quickly in a small town. Too quickly. At first, people came out of curiosity. They asked Timothy questions, and he answered correctly. Questions about arithmetic, questions about geography, questions about history, events that occurred before he was born. Timothy answered them all, without hesitation, without emotion. Soon, curiosity turned into fear. Some whispered that Timothy was possessed. Others claimed he was a miracle sent by God. But the loudest voices said something else. No child should know these things. In late 1870, a physician named Dr. Alistair Monroe arrived from St. Louis. He was a man of science, a skeptic. He examined Timothy for 3 days. He tested reflexes, memory, language. He wrote meticulous notes. And at the end of his examination, Dr. Monroe wrote a single sentence that would later shock historians. "The boy demonstrates cognitive development inconsistent with any known stage of human growth." Dr. Monroe tried to explain it. Perhaps Timothy had an exceptional memory. Perhaps his parents unknowingly taught him. But deep down, even he didn't believe it. What frightened people most was not what Timothy knew. It was what he asked. At age 4, he asked Elias, "Why did the war choose you to survive?" Elias froze. At age 5, he asked Margaret, "Why do mothers forget what they promised before birth?" Margaret fainted. At age 6, he asked the town preacher, "If God sees everything at once, why does time still hurt?" The preacher refused to speak to him again. By 1874, Timothy Caldwell was no longer just a local mystery. Letters were sent, reports copied, Men from universities began arriving. They brought measuring tools, charts. One professor from Boston attempted to test Timothy's limits. He asked Timothy a question in Latin. Timothy answered in Greek. Another scientist attempted to trick him with false information. Timothy corrected him, politely, publicly. The scientists left disturbed and increasingly quiet. On August 14, 1876, the Caldwell home burned down. No one knows how the fire started. Some said lightning, others said sabotage. Elias died in the fire. Margaret survived but never spoke again. Timothy was found outside, unharmed, standing barefoot in the dirt, watching the flames. When asked how he escaped, Timothy replied, "I left before it began." After the fire, Timothy vanished. Official records list him as deceased, but no body was ever found. Margaret was placed in a care home. She died in 1882, and Timothy Caldwell became a footnote, a rumor, a story people stopped telling. In 1921, during the renovation of an abandoned medical archive in St. Louis, a sealed box was discovered. Examination notes, letters, and one final report, written by Dr. Alistair Monroe. The final line read, "If Timothy Caldwell lives, he will not age as we do. He does not experience time in the same direction." Final chapter. What happened to Timothy? Was Timothy a prodigy? Was Timothy a prodigy? A medical anomaly? Something science had not yet named? Or something science still cannot explain? Some claim sightings. A man in the 1900s who never aged. A boy with the same eyes. Watching. Always watching. Narrator. If this story disturbed you, good. Because the most terrifying mysteries are not monsters. They are the moments when science reaches its limit and stops. Pause. Subscribe, because the next story is even harder to explain. End.